Rainbow Six Siege, Overwatch, Apex Legends, Marvel Rivals, Counter-Strike, Valorant, and Rocket League. These games have two things in common. The first, I have hundreds of hours in all of them. 3,000 hours in Siege alone. I've hit the highest rank multiple times. I've proven I'm good at these games. I have the hours to show it. Yet, the second thing they have in common is I don't really enjoy them anymore. I remember the cathartic feeling of winning your rank up game, just leaning back in my chair after having earned the right to breathe again. Looking at the proof that I made it. Proof that all my years of grinding had paid off. But now, I queue up and it feels like I'm clocking into a 9 to 5 that nobody hired me for. It's the same game, but it doesn't feel the same. The same friends I used to stay up until 5 AM laughing with, now complain at every small mistake we make. It's the same me, but what do you do when things that made you love the game is now what's ruining it? If you can't tell, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I decided enough is enough. I did the work to figure out why me and seemingly all my friends are feeling this way. Researching what makes you burn out, what loops you get stuck in, and I think I have a solution. Part 1. The game stops being something you play to have fun and starts becoming something you feel a lot of pressure from. When you first start a game, everything feels fresh. You're curious, you're experimenting, you're learning, and even when you lose, it doesn't hit the same because every match still feels like progress. Your brain is getting rewarded by novelty. You're not thinking too much, you're just playing. But over time, especially in competitive games, something changes. The game stops being about fun and starts being about performance. Instead of queuing because you want to enjoy the game, you queue because you want to maintain your rank, prove something, avoid losing progress, or live up to the standard you set for yourself. That's when gaming starts to feel heavy. Psychologically, this matters because your brain reacts very differently to playing than it does to pressure. When you're relaxed, you're more creative, more reactive, and more adaptable. When you feel pressure, your focus narrows. You start overthinking simple decisions, second-guessing yourself, and getting frustrated way faster. And the higher level you played at, the worse this can get. Because once you've hit a top rank in a game like Siege, you don't just play matches anymore, you compare every match to the best version of yourself. Every bad game feels like evidence that you've fallen off. So even if you're still objectively good, it feels worse because your expectations are so much higher. Part 2. Burnout doesn't always feel like exhaustion. Sometimes it feels like boredom. A lot of people think burnout means you're tired, drained, and completely done. But gaming burnout often feels different. Sometimes it feels like, why does every match feel the same? Why am I not excited anymore? Why do I get on, stare at the game library, and then close everything? That's called burnout. When you spend thousands of hours in competitive games, your brain gets extremely familiar with the reward loop. At first, ranking up feels amazing, hitting clips feels amazing, improving feels amazing, but eventually, your brain adapts. This is basically a form of hedonic adaptation. The idea that things that once felt exciting start to feel normal after repeated exposure. So the same wins that used to give you a huge dopamine hit now barely move you, and losses still feel terrible, sometimes even worse than before. So now you're in this terrible spot where the highs don't feel that high anymore, but the lows still hit hard. That's one of the biggest reasons people get sick of gaming. It's not always that they hate games, it's that the emotional payoff isn't the same anymore. Part 3. Your identity gets too tied to being good. This one is huge, especially in ranked games. When you've spent years getting good at shooters or competitive games, being good stops being just a skill. It becomes part of your identity. You're not just someone who plays the games casually. You're someone who has several hundred or thousand hours in one game, hit the highest rank multiple times, understands the game deeply, and expects a certain level from yourself. The problem is, once your identity becomes tied to performance, every bad session feels personal. If you lose, it doesn't just feel like, ooh, I had a bad game. It starts feeling like, maybe I'm washed. Maybe I'm not as good as I used to be. Maybe I've peaked. And that mindset kills enjoyment. Because now you're no longer playing to experience the game, you're playing to protect your ego. That creates anxiety, frustration, and constant self-judgment. And ironically, that mental pressure makes you play worse. So the more desperately you try to prove you're still good, the more tense you become. And the more tense you become, the worse your mechanics, decision-making, and confidence get. Part 4. You're mentally overloaded. Not just mechanically worse. A lot of gamers say, I swear I'm getting worse. And sometimes, yeah, maybe you're a little less sharp than you were during your absolute peak. But a lot of the time, what's really happening is mental overload. Games like Rainbow Six, Valorant, CS, Overwatch, Apex, these games require a crazy amount of processing. You're tracking positioning, sound cues, timing, enemy patterns, utility, aim, communication, expectations, your last death, your teammate's mistake, and your rank all at once. When your mental state is off, even slightly, all of that becomes harder. Stress outside of gaming affects performance, like poor sleep, frustration, and tilt. So you might think your raw skill is disappearing when really your brain is just carrying too much noise. That's why sometimes you hop on one day and everything feels smooth, and another day you look completely lost. Your skill didn't vanish overnight, your mental clarity changed. Part 5. Improvement becomes harder to feel, so you feel like you're declining. Another psychological trap is that the better you get, the less obvious improvement feels. When you're new to a game, progress is visible all the time. Your aim, movement, and game sense improves fast. But once you reach a high level, growth becomes smaller and more detailed. You're no longer improving in huge obvious leaps, you're improving in tiny margins. And because those improvements are harder to notice, your brain can start interpreting the plateau as decline. So instead of thinking, I'm at a high level where progress is naturally slower, you think, I'm getting worse. That's a dangerous mindset because it turns normal plateaus into self-doubt. And once self-doubt enters the picture, you start hesitating more, forcing plays more, and paying too much attention to your mistakes. That makes your performance feel even worse, which confirms the belief. It just becomes a loop. Part 6. Repetition kills immersion. This is another reason people get sick of gaming, especially if they mainly play ranked multiplayer games. At some point, you stop seeing the game as a world or an experience and start seeing it as a system. You don't load into a map and think, this is cool. You think, same setup, same angles, same mistakes, same teammates, same meta. Once that happens, the magic fades. You become hyper aware of repetition, same rounds, same queue times, same toxic players, and so on. That repeated exposure can make games feel emotionally flat, even if they're still technically good games. It's like listening to your favorite song 1,000 times. The song didn't become bad, your brain just got too used to it. Part 7. Competitive gaming can train your brain to focus more on threat than enjoyment. This is one of the most underrated reasons. In highly competitive games, your brain gets trained to constantly scan for danger. You start thinking about things like mistakes, losses, bad teammates, and so on. Over time, you stop entering gaming sessions looking for fun. You enter them preparing for damage. That means your brain is already defensive before you even play. And when you live in that mindset long enough, gaming becomes emotionally associated with stress instead of enjoyment. So even if you love the game deep down, your body and mind start reacting like it's work. A lot of times I start thinking about the fact that I should be a higher rank, and then I start wasting my whole night just playing because I feel like I have to work at it to become a higher rank. That's why a lot of people can sit at their setup wanting to play, but the second they think about queuing ranked, they instantly feel resistance. That resistance is real. It's your brain remembering the emotional cost. Part 8. Why being good can actually make you worse. The final thing I want to say is this. Being good at a game does not protect you from getting sick of it. In some ways, it can make it worse. Because the more invested you are, the more pressure you feel, the more hours you have, the more repetition you've seen. The higher your rank, the more your identity is tied to performance. The more experience you have, the more you notice every little drop off. So if you've played games like I have competitively for several years, then chances are you're not just casually burnt out. You're mentally carrying years of expectations, habits, comparisons, and emotional association with winning and losing. That all stacks up. So, if you've been feeling sick of gaming lately, or you feel like you're getting worse at the game even though you know you're capable, it doesn't automatically mean you lost your skill. A lot of the time, it just means that your brain is overloaded. Sometimes the problem isn't the game. Sometimes it's the mental framework you've built around the game. And honestly, just understanding that can help a lot. Because once you realize this is psychological, not just mechanical, you stop panicking every time you have a bad session. You stop assuming you're washed after a few bad games, and you start seeing that enjoyment and performance are way more connected than most people think. If you're related to any of this, let me know in the comments, especially if you've had that feeling where you still love gaming, but it doesn't hit the same anymore. And if you want, I can make a part 2 on how to actually fix this, like how to enjoy gaming again, how to get out of burnout, and how to regain confidence when you feel like you're falling off. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.